Hey, what is up guys, and welcome back to the channel. So the Alpine A220 race car has returned. It has been fixed. It's eligible to run back at the Tokyo 600 event, and it is still as powerful as ever. Maybe not quite, as good as it was in its heyday. The late, update 1.20 did kind of sort of see to it in the sense of sort of tie deg. However, it's still absolutely amazing on its fuel consumption, and even running racing softs, it's a pretty decent run around. You'll find that tyre wear isn't too bad until the sort of later stages of the race. Now, I know a lot of people kind of sit there and say, well, this isn't a glitch setup. I will kind of show you how it is glitched in the kind of tuning section when we go and have a look and an overview of the tune. To basically just prove, like, look, this car really, realistically shouldn't be running in a 600 pp event. It's definitely far too powerful. So I can see why they try and patch this. However, we will always pretty much find a way to break it. So in terms of the tune, you're just going to kind of run a little bit extra downforce, and you're actually going to add power to get the performance points down. So you're going to add a custom part, and that's going to basically drop it under 600. So it's really not too bad. If you want to pick this car up, it's around about 330k when it does hit the legendary dealer. So this is a livery I'm using, and I actually fully recommend running this livery because it will give you everything you need. So your PP or performance points, whatever you want to call it, do actually drop under 600, because there's a massive kind of misstep a lot of people make. Now, the livery is by this guy here, TGR86 TRD. So go and look him up, take this livery, and trust me, you will not need to mess about with much at all after that. So the reason I say get the livery is because the wheels, if you basically change the offset or size, you cannot get under 600 pp. So keep the wheels as standard. Do not change them at all, even if you choose not to get this livery. So in terms of performance parts, this is what you need. Racing crankshaft, fully customizable computer, medium RPM turbocharger, fully customizable LSD, racing intercooler, racing silencer, racing brake kit slotted discs, fully customizable suspension, fully customizable racing transmission, racing softs, and you won't need anything else. Now, a lot of that does come on the car as standard. So this is the tuning setup and guide. You want to run racing softs. Your body height at the front is 115, and then at the rear it's 120. Anti-roll bar is 5 at the front and 5 at the rear. Dampening ratio compression is 30 front, 30 rear. Dampening ratio expansion is 40 front, 40 rear. Natural frequency 4.00 front, 4.00 rear. Negative camber angle 1.5 at the front and 2.0 at the rear. Toe angle 0.10 outwards, not inwards, outwards. And then at the rear it's 0.30 inwards, not outwards. So on the differential, you want it at 5 at the initial torque, acceleration is 29, and then 5 at the bottom. Ensure you've got your fully customizable racing transmission, set that to 330. You don't need to do individual gears. Make sure you've got the fully customizable ECU. You're not going to have to mess around with that. In terms of downforce, it's 200 at both front and rear. As you can see, this is where it does glitch out. So if I change that slightly, it goes up to nearly 750. Put it back and it goes to 593. Medium RPM turbocharger is a must. Racing intercooler, again, that is a must. Nothing else needs changing here apart from this, the racing crankshaft. So make sure you've got that installed. It should instantly drop under 600. So this is for the newbies. The event, it's going to be the Tokyo Expressway, and it's the World Touring Car 600. So go ahead and enter that. Now, in terms of settings and assist, I recommend traction control on full to begin with. This is because this car does not like the standing water. I also recommend braking area because the older brakes means it's a little bit difficult to kind of get used to where to brake with this car. So turn that on. It will kind of move as it dries out. ASM on and counter steering assistance strong. You can wean yourself off. I will tell you the perfect time as we go through the run. Okay, so you will not need to mess around with the fuel here apart from really the start. That is when I recommend doing it, and that is mainly for grip, not fuel consumption. So leave it at 1 and power through. So I'm going to show you the first 2 laps of my run just to show you how quickly the track dries up. A lot of people judge Tokyo and Tokyo cars by basically the first lap. And I'm going to show you that it is no easy feat, and that it's all about kind of just taking your time and surviving the first couple of laps. But essentially what I like to do is kind of break the race up. So I've said this in most of my Tokyo guides, and I'll say it again. So first lap, so laps 1 to around about 3 or 4 is your survival stage. Once you get onto lap 4, the track is pretty much dry. At that point, you won't need to kind of mess around with any settings or anything like that. Just switch your fuel mix to 1 and run until your first pit stop. That'll be sort of sprint 1. And then you'll kind of go into a more sprint stage where basically you're just, you know, doing your pits and you're just running max power all the way to the end in pretty much full dry conditions. So with the fuel, what I recommend doing, a lot of people don't do this, but I really do recommend doing it. I recommend as you get into the more weavy sections off of the straight in the kind of lap 1 to 3, is basically put your power to 3. This will stop the wheels spinning up too much and will basically stop you kind of skidding into the barrier. This car does require a lot of throttle control, so just be careful, just take your time. And obviously with the added damage now, you know, literally the slightest tap will damage your car. Just be extra careful to try and avoid the AI, because sometimes they are very clumsy. I had a lot of moments throughout this run when I was going to lap cars that they would sort of turn in, ignore the blue flags, and I'd end up with damage. Next thing I know, I'm in the wall and I'm getting penalties. So it really wasn't the cleanest run for me either. I think overall I ended up with like nearly a 26 minute odd time, when in reality this car can go down into the 25s and run under 2 minutes a lap. It just seemed like kind of luck was not on my side for this run, and obviously I'm trying to adjust to the way the car feels now. It doesn't feel majorly different. It just feels a little bit more kind of, I guess, difficult to drive, especially in the wet. However, once the track dries up, you'll find that it's actually really not that bad at all. It's all about really surviving early doors and then basically just going for it in the later part of the race. But you know, I mean, I'm kind of taking my time because I haven't really returned to Tokyo much since update 1.20. I've kind of been focusing on other things. With the Chevy, I found that I was far too quick to have to sort of worry about battling the AI. I'd do most of my overtaking on the straight, sort of timing it right. But with the Alpine, I noticed because it's got a little bit of a reduced speed on the straights, I was kind of waiting around in the pack a lot more. I couldn't quite beat them, you know, straight out the door into turn 1. Because if you can do that, you will get a much easier run. But when it comes to lapping and the clumsy AI and such, you'll notice that if they tap you, you're pretty much screwed, because you're going to take damage and it's really going to kind of affect how the car handles. So this build is definitely not as powerful as it used to be. It's the same with the Corvette. It's just not as good as it was pre-update 1.20. It is, however, still very strong. In terms of running Tokyo, it's still, you know, one of the better methods in the game. But I feel like the added damage and added tire degradation really kind of has, you know, had an effect on these cars, and I feel like that's kind of what they were wanting to do, to kind of slow the grind down. So it's worked in that sense. It's still not majorly changed. I mean, I think the tops you're going to be running in terms of difference is around about a minute, because you are going to have to pull off an extra pit stop. But you know, it's not too bad. It's still probably the fastest sort of time ratio to credit ratio in Gran Turismo 7 running around Tokyo in some of these faster, more sort of non-legal builds, in terms of, you know, they shouldn't really be running there. But they are definitely the go-to, and the Alpine is definitely a highlight because it's much easier for pretty much everyone to drive. A lot of people, you know, kind of know at this point, they've ran it before, that it's really kind of, you know, gets upset by standing water and such. So just try and avoid that as much as possible. But as you can see on lap 2, we're starting to gain some pace, and we've sort of worked our way up the grid. So on to lap 4, just remember to kind of basically turn the engine up to full. I'm not going to go into too much detail because a lot of people would have probably ran this method before, but from lap 4, start turning the assists off and just run fuel mix 1 only. As you can see here, the laps just dropped to a 2:11.9. That's still a pretty slow lap in comparison to before, but it's still much faster than most cars. Your first pit stop, you want to take it at the end of lap 7. I'd kind of lap 6, lap 7 at the end of one of those. I personally gone for the end of lap 7 to basically stretch my run out. I do recommend basically filling the car to full. This will give you a little bit more to play around with. You actually don't have to. But I was kind of just doing a, getting used to the whole car again run. So I did fill it to full, or you can kind of fill it just above the diamond. Don't ever fill it to the diamond because it won't really. It's kind of hit and miss with how it fuels the car. I'd recommend just kind of going over that and then just going. It will basically lower your time overall. Now you're not going to have to put any more fuel in the car, but you will have to make an extra pit stop. So this is where it's basically changed up the strategy. It's a little bit more awkward to run because later on you're going to have to jump straight back in the pits after a couple more laps. That's because of the high tyre deg in terms of Gran Turismo 7 now. So end of lap 10, I've chose to take my extra pit stop. I'm going to jump in, I'm going to put the softs on, and I'm not going to refuel the car. So it's going to be a much quicker, straightforward pit stop. They're just going to throw the tyres on and away we go. And then we're just going to run to the end as fast as possible. Obviously we took extra fuel on board, so we're not going to be worrying about that or anything. So it's just basically a straightforward sprint to the finish now. No more pit stops or messing about needed. So we're going to go around the last few corners and basically cross the line. So in terms of my opinion on this build, I feel like it's still insanely strong. I 100% recommend running it. It's good to know that it still does work and that you can still kind of get that performance points under 600, even though it kind of shouldn't be. But it's just one of those things, take advantage of it while you can. They will very much know about the Alpine, even if we didn't make these videos. Polyphony aren't daft. They know kind of where the bugs and stuff are, even without us making this video. So I know a lot of people will turn around and say, oh, well, they'll go and patch it now. They were going to patch it at some point anyway. If you ever do check patch notes, you'll notice they'll patch things you didn't even know about. So it's just one of those things. Overall, we did a 26.44, which is really bad. But like I said, I was kind of getting used to the build and sort of learning again. We did a 2 minutes 01. You can get those lap times quite easily under 2 minutes. I just recommend practice more than anything. Overall, 825k within around about, let's say, 25 minutes. So it's definitely one of the better paying events. So the Alpine lives, and I am so grateful for it. I genuinely absolutely love this car. It's earned me so much money over time, and it's pretty much paid for itself probably 100 times over. So genuinely a really, really good build to get on top of. Pretty cheap starting point. You don't really need many upgrades for it. So it's going to pay for itself within one run. Anything after that is complete profit. Polyphony, they'll be aware that the Alpine's around again. They're not stupid, like I said. You can blame people like me all you want for it getting patched, but they're not daft. They know that these kind of things are lingering about. So that is going to be it for today's video. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Turn notifications on. It really does help me out and it helps you see my videos first. Big shout out to everyone that supports the channel, and I'll see you all later. Cheers guys. Peace.